Okay, so the second part of the instantiate script is adding in some more properties to it so that we can place the cubes in particular places rather than just having them explode out randomly on the start of the game. So the way that we do that is just by changing the script a little. So we're going to create a new C# script, and this time we're going to say, we're going to call it position cube. So we can open up our position cube script, and here's one I prepared earlier. So it's the same piece of script. We have our game object variable, we have our start function, and we have our for loop. Our action inside that for loop is to instantiate the cube. I've added a new piece of code though in here, which is essentially saying where we want that new cube to instantiate. So new vector3 is a position in the 3D space, and here inside the round brackets we have the x, y, and z value that we want the new cube to appear at. So essentially we're saying we want the new cube to appear at wherever I is times 2, and we want the y and the z axes to stay at 0. Quaternion identity means the same rotation as the original cube. So a cube will appear in almost the exact same position, it's just going to be 2 places further along on the x-axis. So if I save this script, come back to Unity, so I'm going to place this new script onto my main camera. So we have our cube explode script. We want to remove that by clicking remove component from the settings wheel. And I'm going to drag my position cube script onto my camera. And then we can set the value of our variable again by choosing cube from our scene list. And we'll see what happens now when we press play. And we can see this time that our cubes have fallen in a line. Now that first cube had some sort of reaction with the cube that appeared next to it, so I may need to increase the distance between those cubes on the x-axis, especially if you've increased the scale of your cube. So we can come into position cube, and instead of saying times 2, we can just say times 4. The last option we have is to place the cubes randomly throughout the scene. So we can decide how many cubes we want in our scene, and then they will place within a certain x, y, and z value on a random scale. So we'll create a new C# script here called random cube. And again, here's the script that I prepared earlier. So again, same script. We have our public game object cube. We then have our start function with our for loop saying if I is less than 300, continue to instantiate cubes. We have instantiate cube in a new vector3 position. This time we have our x value as a random range anywhere between -500 to 500. We have our y value at 1, so sitting just above the plane. And then we have our z value at random range -500 to 500. There should be a comma in there. And then we have our rotation set to the same rotation as the original cube. So we'll double check here that we've got all of our right brackets closing. Yeah, looks good. Save it. And we can put our random cube script on our camera. So we can remove our position cube script, add our random cube script. Oops, it looks like I've got a bit of an error here because my variable's not showing up. So we'll just come back to our script here, instantiate cube, random range, open, close, open. Then we just need to close another bracket there. So now we have open the instantiate, what we're instantiating, the position we're instantiating it in, the rotation, and then we close that final bracket, and that should now fix that problem. Let me reset this script, and that's fixed the problem. So now we can see our cube variable, which I can assign. And when we press play, hopefully our cubes now just fall in random positions all throughout the plane. This obviously makes it a little bit neater than having an exploding cube at the start of the game. So in all three, or in both of these scripts, the position cube and the random cube, you can have a bit of a play around with the values that we've put in there and play around with changing the position on the Y or the Z axis. You can play around with the random range to get things falling exactly where you want them.